going to call to order the City of Burlington's Board of Finance meeting on Monday, February 9th, 2026 at 5:15 p.m. And our first item is the agenda. There's a slightly modified motion on City Clerk, so if folks want to refresh. I will see if there is a motion.
Move to adopt the agenda as amended on City Clerk.
Thank you, Councilor Travers. Is there a second? Thank you, Councilor Carpenter. Any discussion on the motion before we vote? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Well, before we go to public forum, can we put Councilor Newbeazer on the screen as a, just so in case he raises his hand, I can see him. Thank you. Okay. So our next item is our public forum, and is the practice of the Board of Finance to first to go to members of the public in the room and then online. I only see city staff here. Welcome, city staff. So we'll go online. And is anyone online from the public? Former City Councilor Sharon Busher. Good evening, Sharon. The floor is yours.
Thank you. The odd thing was that when I zoomed in, it didn't ask for my name and it just brought me to the meeting. So that's why I raised my hand, because I wasn't sure what was going on. So I don't know whether that's a problem at my end or just a generic problem, but I just wanted to alert you. So thank you. I wanted to speak on two items. Number one is the dredging item on your agenda. And it has to do, as you know, with it has to do with delays, which you're well aware of, but it also has to do with where the hazardous materials will be disposed of. And I know that there was a hope that there could be treatment of these materials and they could still be located along the bank of 127. And I just wanted to just alert you to the fact that I have a lot of concerns about that location. It's where the Ethan Allen Homestead is, the New American Gardens, Wildways, recreational path for families and children. I'm just concerned about whether it's lead or any other contaminants there. It abuts the Intervale, which is a food source. So I'm really hoping that in this process, in this delay, there can be another location. I understand bringing it to a landfill has additional cost, and I'm not looking to impose more costs on the city, but I am trying to keep us safe and think about things that leach into the soil that stay there for a long time and are impossible to get rid of. So those are my comments regarding that. The second has to do with your second item on your deliberate agenda, which has to do with the reclass and upgrade of the Department of Finance and Administration. And you're well into doing reclasses and upgrades. You inherited a system that began with Moreau in earnest, and what Moreau didn't bring forward from previous administrations was that we looked at how we compared with other communities and in the region, but then we provided a formula for Burlington to make it what we could actually afford to pay people. But he, as a private developer, brought forward the goal of having us in par with the private sector. And so to stop that process, I would create a lot of turmoil, and I understand that. But I am concerned about continuing it also. And I understand, I am an employee advocate. I always have been, even though as a city councilor, I understood I was like management and administration, but I always tried to look out for the employee. So it's hard for me to say some of those things. And the other comment that would have been helpful for me with this is you've got a nice table showing the cost of if, when you change a grade, what the ultimate cost will be in salary, change in salary. What's missing are the salary ranges of the existing grade and the new grade, because that's really the overall impact that moves not only from this budget, but in future budgets, how that will impact us and how that will grow our compensation. So I think that would have been really helpful to see. But thank you so much for listening. I always say these things hoping that that these things that I learned or I feel were important may be important to all of you. Thanks.
Thank you, Sharon. We always appreciate you phoning in or zooming in. Anyone else online who'd like to address the Board of Finance? Seeing none, city staff again. So I will close close public forum. Move on to our next item, which is our consent agenda. Is there a motion on the consent agenda? Councilor Rallo.
Move to adopt the consent agenda as amended and take the actions.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you, Councilor Carpenter. Any discussion on the consent agenda motion before we vote? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Go on to our first deliberative item on our agenda, which is item 4.1 regarding the Burlington Harbor Marina, a dredging maintenance project and a contract amendment and budget discussion with our Burlington Conservation Waterfront Department. Joined by Sophie. Welcome, Sophie. Still just gonna sit in the back.
Here from Morrison.
Okay, great. Okay, well, yeah, great. Well, welcome, Sophie. Thanks.
So,
Overview first, yeah.
okay, just to update you, the project is active currently. We are dredging at Perkins Pier currently. As the memo states, so we're requesting a budget amendment and also a contract amendment. We've been in conversations with DC all along with this project. We had a soil management plan approved, but trying to obviously cut down on costs and just also balancing the logistics of the project. Our first step was, as I came here, I think in the fall, was to get the soil or the sediment out of the lake so that in the spring, when we're back up and running the marinas, we can have a fully functioning marina again. Thankfully, the bids came in that we can do both areas of the marina, both Perkins Pier and College Street outfall. So that's the great news. So we're going to succeed in removing the sediment from the lake. The next part is obviously dealing with the sediment, the majority of which is going to the 1.7, the Cloverleaf area, not near the homestead or the gardens that were brought up earlier. But the 2B soils, which are the ones that we're kind of in flux about, DC has a new system or new evaluation process. This seems to be the first project that's going against that evaluation process in terms of thresholds. It does not meet currently the lead thresholds by very little, but with some potential amendment, i.e. cement, there is potential for that lead to come down, which will require additional testing and then deciding where it can be disposed. So in the interim, we'll be staging it at Perkins Pier, if not another location within the city, to minimize touching it too many times because that costs money. So we're hopeful, constantly in conversations with DC, but until then, we need a place to store it, and that's the cost of temporarily having it at Perkins Pier wrapped up safe. Wasn't too long, sorry.
Like a little overview. It's great. Questions or comments from the board?
Thank you. Is the 10,000, that'll be general fund money? And then the other money is coming from wastewater?
Yeah, so wastewater is contributing $25,000, especially to the College Street portion, which connects to the outfall essentially. And then the rest is already bond fund that we have in our project from general fund. Yeah.
And is the extra money, is it to go containment areas or something at Perkins Pier?
It's just to wrap it in special plastic, the poly encapsulation, yes. And then if we need to amend it, depending on these conversations with DEC, we would likely have to come back as additional funding.
Just out of curiosity, since you just dug it out, not very far away, why are you having to encapsulate? This has already been a
Right, that's a great question. We want to make sure it doesn't go anywhere when it's at Perkins, it's being dewatered, so right now it's not moving at all because it's basically really heavy mud. But once it's dewatered, it could become more mobile, we'll call it. So far, it's not,
I
but
mean, like it would turn into dirt.
it is essentially will to be dirt, yes.
Okay, so you don't want dirt flying around.
We don't want it flying around, we don't want anyone in it, you know, it's in a staging area construction zone, but of course, you know, people are always curious, so we're just being extra safe. Yeah, and considering it has reached a threshold for lead with DC, we also wanna just take the necessary precautions, keep
But
it,
it's okay, it's wonderful.
not in the sediment, I hope, but yes, in the lake.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilor Grinder. Councilor Rowland, were you all set?
I guess I'm also interested in like, do we have a timeline for how long it'll be at Perkins? And where, you know, might it go somewhere else before it ultimately reaches the city? And I think there was concern expressed by one council official about having it at the homestead.
Right, and it wouldn't be going to the homestead, hopefully the final resting place for this portion of the soil is also the 127, where the other two and the category 1 and 2 are going to are going currently within the cloverleaf, so nowhere near there.
This is the north end of 127.
Yes, yeah, right near North Ave, essentially.
Yeah, but I never actually have not heard it referred to as clover.
Oh, okay.
I
Well,
just didn't.
maybe it's me saying it wrong.
It is
Where-
cloverleaf,
Yeah,
It's one clover.
yeah,
I just, but yeah, it's one leaf.
one leaf, sorry.
I just didn't refer to it as that.
We don't know the timeline. We're back and forth with DEC, just trying to find the best solution. So that we're not sending it to the landfill, because that would be the most expensive option. And it also takes up landfill space, but also want to make sure we're doing the right thing in terms of not putting it somewhere where it could affect anyone. Yeah, so no timeline yet, but hopeful that once this project wraps up, we have a way forward. So
So you mean by 2 months from now, or?
hopefully, yes, hopefully we'll have a solution and a way forward by then. But it has taken a while. We've been in negotiations or conversations with DEC since the fall on this particular piece of the project.
Yeah, I don't have any more questions now, but I will, maybe you could come back and update us at some point.
Absolutely, yeah.
If it's on the agenda. Travis, thank you.
Yep.
Any further questions or discussion on this item? Councilor Powers.
It's actually a somewhat unrelated question. If you don't have the answer now, that's fine. We'll be interested on it offline, but just geographically related. Any updates on the status of the boathouse? Is there any potential work related to the dredging projects to improve or shore up the boathouse? I know that it's been perhaps in a fragile state for some time and needing some additional support. And of course, we're doing some dredging work here to continue to bring additional traffic to the waterfront. We want to make sure that is a facility that remains in good shape as well.
Sure. We have a feasibility study underway. We unfortunately it's been delayed. The economic assessment was the last portion that we're waiting for. We've just received it, so staff will be reviewing that imminently. But in the meantime, excuse me, we do have the urgent needs list that has been compiled from the beginning of that study. And we have requested funds in the fiscal year 28 budget for some initial repairs to make sure it doesn't get worse in the short term, and then hopefully in the long term.
Fiscal 28.
Yes.
Be unfortunate if we dredge only for the boathouse to fill it back in. So let's keep the boathouse in brackets.
Any other questions or comments before I see if there's a motion? Is there a motion? Feel free to reference specific words.
I would, the two-part motion recommended, so you.
Thank you, Councilor Barlow. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilor Carpenter. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Thanks. Okay, on to our next deliberative item, item 4.2, a request for a job description updates and position reclassifications regarding our Department of Finance and Administration.
Yep, I will give it a quick overview and then turn it over to Brad. We are excited to bring this forward. This is part of the ModGov changes that we made at the beginning of the fiscal year, and the Department of Finance and Administration was a bit of a guinea pig in terms of we knew that it was important to make some cost-cutting changes, and we reduced 4.5 finance and accounting positions, and we knew that would add work to both existing positions in the department as well as some of those that moved in. But we didn't know exactly what that would look like. And so now that we do, we are bringing that to you, and I'll let Brad talk about that. I do want to address one thing that I heard from Sharon Busher, which is the reclassification, these reclassifications have gone through the city process, which uses the Willis system. It has nothing to do with the private sector, and in fact, I would advocate that I don't know if these positions are on par with the private sector for salary, but I would suspect they're not because the city offers robust benefits. So Sharon, I'm sure you're still listening, and I would welcome a conversation offline about that, but I did want to clear that up for people who might be listening, that this process we have gone through does not have anything to do with keeping salaries on par with the private sector. But in fact, what it does have to do with is looking at each of the job descriptions and where they have changed. Then they go back to our human resources department, and I should say we have Tim Clancy joining us. Thank you, Tim. And he and his colleagues put those through that Willis system to see if there has been any change one way or another. That little precursor.
Experience of some other localities that our team has heard about of looking into the philanthropy world. So we kind of wanted to get started on some of that work, which is kind of new to the city. The last change was an Ask Me position, which was a billing and admin accountant that worked directly with Department of Public Works, doing their project billing and recouping reimbursements from the state or other federal project grants. This person is a fully qualified senior accountant level person doing that level work now, and it is a need for the for our team, and so that is the only union change going from an ASME to a non-union, and that is with support of the union groups. The last position in our table here is the NPA engagement specialist, and that was a 30-hour-a-week part-time staff person who reports through our clerk, and that person, we have quite a bit of work that we added to their responsibilities, including, but not limited to, the development and production of the annual report, in addition to, some of more time-consuming administrative and facilitator-based engagement work this person does with the MPA. So that goes from 30 hours to 40 hours. List of the budgetary impact and our funding for these reclassifications. We are presenting a budget neutral one, comes from vacancies that we have had in both our comptroller and chief accountant positions over the last just about a year. And some of those savings will persist for another, I would say, month or so. In total, those well exceeded the overall financial impact of both fiscal year 26 and 27, both through the vacancy savings that we've generated and kind of have in the bank, if you will, through our budget, but also in FY 27 as we shuffle things around there spring to make everything budget neutral in regards to the 27 budget as well. So I think that's it from me, but I'm happy to answer questions.
Just one quick point of clarification. I think that it is clear, but we are asking you to consider a lot of different moves here. None of these positions or in fact employees are new. And if you have questions, we're happy to answer them. But just to be clear, some of these positions were already located in CT, some moved from other departments into the newly created DFA. But they are all both employees and positions that were already existing in the city.
Thank you.
Questions from the board or comments? Councilor Carpenter.
Two comments on the job around adding philanthropy to the job description. I think it's a great idea. And I just encourage us to make sure that that person looks out for some of our partners as we're looking at opportunities. There may be things that we don't do or don't want to do, but they would do. So I'm just looking at that as maybe a resource and encouragement of that particular person to see what's out there that might affect our partners as well.
Yeah.
Sharing that information. The other comment was on the NPA engagement specialist. What I'm hearing is you've given that person extra work, but and they deserve to be paid. But that is no longer a full-time NPA position. And I don't know if you could tweak the title a little bit, because there may be others who will say, well, why do you need full-time NPA specialists? Isn't that an area that you could cut? And, you know, if I hear what you said, you've actually added work that needed to be done, and there was capacity in that position to do it, and I think that's all good. But then just looking at the title, the outside world may say that's empty. So I don't know how to tweak that, but just maybe think a little bit on the title of NPA engagement specialist and PFA coordinator,
Yes.
you know, something like that.
Yeah.
We'll also note that we've added an additional MPA night because wards 2 and 3 are no longer meeting together. So that has been a shift in the last year too in the city. So now there's only, out of the 8 wards, only 2 that meet together, just Ward 7. So
We meet very nicely.
talk about that another time. Similar thoughts. Other questions or comments on this proposal? Councilor Jeffers.
Yeah, thanks very much for the presentation. I want to thank Catherine as well for taking some time to meet with myself and Councilor Bravo with respect to this. I will be supporting this tonight in large part because I do think the city has a past practice of doing reclassifications this way, as former Councilor Busher mentioned. I do believe that folks have been working in these roles and in an expanded capacity with the understanding that today was likely coming. And in fairness to that past practice and in fairness to those employees, I'll be supporting the initiative this evening. I do want to take the opportunity, though, moving forward to say a couple things. One is that I think we're all in agreement, and hopefully we will be in a better place with respect to this with our new permanent director of HR's new reclassification form and are being able to streamline that process. But I do agree that it would be better for us to do this more on the front end and proactively, as opposed to our being in a position to have to reclassify later on and look backwards. Second, there was a reference earlier on to our trying to align a reclassification process with the private sector. Well, in my experience in the private sector, and I've heard Councilor Barlow say this as well, this kind of retro pay along with a promotion is not necessarily standard practice. This is something that is pretty unique, actually, in my experience, to the city of Burlington. I think it's fairly common that folks will take on expanded responsibilities, that their supervisor will let them know that they'll be advocating for them to receive a promotion, but that the reward for taking on the expanded responsibilities is the promotion down the line, and that doesn't always necessarily come with retroactive pay. And given our current fiscal constraints and financial realities here, as other departments are now looking to do this reclassification process again, hopefully more proactively, I do want to sort of say out loud that I would caution department heads and supervisors from indicating to employees that if they're taking on expanded responsibilities, that there will be retroactive pay down the line. Because I don't want to be in a position, if I'm a member of the Board of Finance, then in having to be that guy in because of financial constraints, telling folks that they're not going to receive the pay that they maybe felt was, whether explicitly or implicitly based on past practice, promised to them. So I want to say that out loud because I do hope that as department heads move forward here, if they now need to cite to us as the bad guys in discussions that they're having with employees to say, look, there's members of the Board of Finance who have said, I don't think we're going to be able to do this moving forward, that's something that you can cite to.
Thank you, Councilor Travers. I just want to respond to that just very briefly. I'll come right to both of you. Prior this fiscal year, and as I've reported to Board of Finance, we've been really working hard on the reclassification process, and that's HR Director Reagan came this meeting or so to talk about kind of the culmination of all that work for consistency. And we very much are in line with what you're saying, Councilor Travers, around being very careful around retroactive pay and not assigning more work in with any of those kinds of parameters. And this is really a unique one in the sense that it is, as Catherine was saying, one of the first Modern Gov initiative mergers that we were really trying to achieve many different things, and the difficulties of last year's fiscal year budget gap that we were trying to all close collectively together. And I just call attention to really for the public, so I know you all read the memo on page 1, to remember that the 4.5 FTE reductions that really culminated in this merger from pulling people and really bringing these satellite accountants in ended in a savings of $450,000. So the retroactive pay is only about $9,000. To put that in perspective, I think it's just important because not everyone reads the memos. Completely agree about the practice, and just want to put that context in that this merger was pretty substantial in trying to be, well, it was one of the solutions for last year's budget challenges and ongoing. If you might imagine, as we continue to narrow this budget gap, is a piece of the puzzle as we continue to work on right sizing and moving the city forward with what we can sustain. So I just wanted to flag that element as well. Thank you for letting me jump in. Councilor Barlow, I don't know who was first, Councilor Barlow and then Councilor Carpenter.
I just want to concur with Councilor Travers's comments. My experience in the private sector has been that even in situations downsizing, RIFs, the folks who stay normally just by virtue of the circumstance end up with more work, and eventually if they're rewarded for it through promotion or reclassification, that was all that in my experience that I had seen happen. I had this idea of retroactive pay for these jobs. I understand there is some language in the bargaining agreement that if a employee seeks it, but then it's discussed. But yeah, I think as a practice, especially now, when we're trying to close these structural budget gaps, we need to just be obtaining all the places we can where we're spending, maybe money that we might not have to. So I concur. Going forward, I would be hard pressed. I know I've said it on other reclassifications. I've pointed this out, and I would just like us not to be considering future reclassifications with retroactive pay attached to it. Because like Councilor Trevor said, we end up having to be the bad guys to say no after it's already been sort of promised and memorialized in the memos that are brought to us. So ditto on that. I had one question about the temporary to or part-time to full-time position for the NPA position. I think it's an important position, but I just had more just for my own education. Like, so it's an ASME employee, it was a part-time employee. At what level of part-time do you start to get like benefits like retirement and healthcare? Does that happen at 30 hours or is it some?
I think I know the answer.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
I'm doing it.
phone a friend, your HR friend.
Yeah, so in this particular case, the incumbent already did have benefits. It was a move from 30 hours to 40 hours. The big, and they were eligible for retirement, all of that at 30 hours. The big change will be a slight change in the cost to the incumbent because prorated at 30 hours for healthcare versus at 40 hours, it'll be the same as any other full-time employee in the city. But that really was the biggest, change benefit wise. At 30 hours, you're pretty much eligible for all the city's benefits.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Yep.
Councilor Carpenter?
Well, I was gonna, what my colleagues said. I have unfortunately had to do two of these in quasi-governmental sphere. We didn't go retroactive. So I do think that's important. I think one of my observations, not about wanting to go, but we've seen a few occasions where it took the manager a very long time to do the reclass. And I think just that's the message is if you need to do it, do it quick. Don't wait a long time because I think that just pulls it out for everybody.
Councilor Carpenter. I'm mindful what time it is. We have one more item on deliberative to talk about our budget to the actual report. Are there any final questions or comments before we look for a motion? If there is a motion. Is there a motion?
I would move to the motion that's on civic clerk.
Thank you, Councilor Carpenter. Is there a second?
Also,
Thank you, Councilor Barlow. Any further discussion before I call the question? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Right, on to our last item 4.3, which is our fiscal year 26 Q2 general fund performance report. Brad as well.
Yes.
Thank you, Brad. This was originally on consent. We pulled it to deliberative, just given our commitment to transparency. So it's a high level. Thank you.
So we have in front of us, or in the packet on civic clerk, memo detailing the year through Q2, fiscal year Q2, which is December 31st, 2025. So halfway through the fiscal year, and this is between now and Q3 is when things actually start to get interesting enough to draw out some points to talk about or look at or think. Overall, we are tracking quite well and projecting, given all of the data that we have and all of the emerging things that we've learned about, projecting essentially a break-even budget, which at this point in time in the year is excellent. The project projection assumptions are built on assuming some historical percentages. So typically we collect 99.7% of property taxes. Especially the way we account for those through our fiscal year end. We also took a look at our gross receipts data through November 30th of 2025, which was at this point in time the best information we have, and decided to adjust down the revenue projection that we had initially put in there for the fiscal 26 budget. So we adjusted that down by about $580,000. I believe that also corresponds with some of the adjustments made to the FY27 budget scenario that we're looking at for gross receipts. So really just kind of catching up on our environment, what our demand is, what our collection rate is, all of those good things. If you turn to the second page of the memo, there is a bit more detail about gross receipts. You can see that each of them have increased year over year in collection or in revenue received, save for rooms, and we could possibly speculate about why that may be, but it is a small adjustment, and maybe on March 9th, when we are prepared and expected to discuss the full December and at least a portion of the holiday season gross receipts, we might be able to provide you some more information there. But we did make some adjustments down, as you can see in the budget implications of $580,000 on a $6.7 million total expected receipt. On the expenditure side, we are tracking, I looked through all of the various departments, and we are tracking just below 50%, or in some cases like Burlington Parks, Recreation, and Waterfront, and we have a lot of seasonal staff. A good number at this point in time of the year that I've talked with them about is if they are 60% or under, it tends to be trending in the good direction at this point in time to 55%. Same with Burlington City Arts or some of the other places that do more seasonal cyclical work. But our large departments are tracking well. I've begun the process of meeting with at least for now, this way I might expand this in the future, but the big four groups, so police, fire, parks and recreation, and DPW, to go through their budget in more detail and try to be more coordinated with our department and their strategic planning of their budget. But overall, I think we are on a good trend and on track to have a at least neutral, if not better, balance by year's end with some with not very large adjustments or changes that we'll have to make to that all meeting. So that was kind of quick and high level, but I'm happy to take questions, and if I don't have the answer, I can get back to you as well.
Questions or comments from the board? Councilor Carpenter.
It's not really this, this is an ask to you.
Sure.
If you might prepare for us a pie chart, two pie charts, one of how the general fund's broken up, what's in the general fund, and another, which is more or constituent use of how our taxes break out. I mean, general fund versus splinter taxes, and I would be interested in school taxes too. So how does our tax?
Yeah, I think I hear what you're saying. Why don't I drop something and share it with you and see if we're on the same page?
Okay, great. Thank you.
Merlin.
Yes, thank you. I had a question about the And under employee benefits, under expenditures, it said modified accrual basis, is that a different way to account for that? Some of the other things, and this is called out here specifically.
We took that approach. It's not a different way. It's similar to how we do our property taxes, which is to make sure that we capture from departmental budgets and from the general fund, from all the various funds, all of the necessary expenses that departments need to pay for both healthcare, which is its own internal service fund, and for our liability insurances and other such things. This is more about the healthcare side. To make sure that we capture all of those, we book regular monthly transactions of the total year's budget divided by 12. And then in April, we go back, we see what the total expenditure is going to be, true that up. So where it looks, in fact, our expenditures here perhaps are overstated compared to what they actually are. They did an analysis of, this was the first year we put in a 5% vacancy savings rate across the board. How are we tracking that? We did some comparison, and we're well within. We're hitting that, and so maybe not in every single case, but across the board and to a large extent, that's covered, which would tell me that 50% of our benefits budget is expended. It's more like 40%, something like that. So we may be a little overstated here, but at this point in time, it's better to be conservative. And it's also a way for us to ensure that the funds that exist pretty much only for the sake of accounting, but that can go off the general fund.
So the modification is rather you take a 12 and then you actually true it up with what was actually add in or subtract out whatever the actuals.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, just do that in April, May time. With a true up.
Thank you.
Anything else on this item? Which is just for general purposes of saying absolutely.
Thank you very much.
See no other questions?
Oh, sorry.
Hold on there.
Sorry.
I think you're in the third.
Thank you.
Just had a premonition. All right. So with that, that is, I'll close out that item, and that is our last deliberative item. So with that, in business on the Board of Finance agenda, I will adjourn the meeting at 6:01. Thank you very much.